Most heartfelt greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlethems. I eagerly welcome you to Sturgeon's most premier station, Dusk Light Radio, hosted by yours truly, the depravingly duplicitous, sadistically surreptitious, and indisputably iconoclastic Everett J. Blackwell. Perhaps you know of us Blackwells. We were one of the first deep, dark explorers of the depraved mine tunnels all under Sturgeon. Young Tabitha Blackwell was our head excavationist. Stern, level-headed, and imbued with the powers of Kurth Kotesh, she was truly a force to behold. You know, she was initially thought to be lost in the cave-in of 77, forced to roam the innumerable tunnels of old that ran under Sturgeon, fighting off the unseen obsidian horrors, all while satiating the ancient beast inside of her. But according to yesterday, it seems she just took an extended vacation and is now back. She even said, "It wasn't that big a deal, guys. I will now proceed to feast on whatever is left," before locking eyes with Papa Kyle Blackwell and our janitors, smiling, coughing, and then shuffling out of sight. Welcome back, Tabitha. Anyway, I'm Dusklight's main and most fabulous half-dead host. My job at this fine radio station is to bring you some of the most twisted, interesting, and downright bizarre tales that I and my wonderful many-legged runners collect from the far corners of Sturgeon and beyond. Some of them will make you laugh, some will make you cry, and some of you will be aware of our little anglerfish issue I may have mentioned before. Well, listeners, it seems that this may be the same one that came up in the first transmission of The Spaces in Between. Maybe something else in this retelling of one of Sturgeon's most infamous conflicts can unlock the secret to dispelling it. Or maybe... Oh my. Listeners, Jackal Blackwell just crawled over our overhead window like a spider, but with far too many teeth. Jackal is a nocturnal member of the Blackwell family. Kyle usually ensures they're fed every third Sunday so they don't go on a rampage. But maybe Kyle has been a bit too distracted with his hobo queen. Back in the old days, Jackal would go on hunts for food. Most of us Blackwells couldn't contain the raw, feral nature contained within such a nimble body. All we could do was chase after them and hope they only took a limb or two that we could appropriately compensate for. But they always left a calling card. The Jackal of Hearts. Well, welcome back to the family, Jackal. Please eat the fish-looking one and not your dear fourth cousin thrice removed. I beg of you. I'm too young to die. It's time for our tale of this evening. And the tale, as you all expect, is The Spaces in Between, the very first series opening the doors to the world of Sturgeon, as told by Janitor Supremo and author T.J. Lee, who also lends his voice to Sully, Gomez, and Venerator here in parts 2 and 3 of this tale. Please take a look at part 1 before jumping in here. Joining him is the wonderful spirit voices playing Letty and Krauss, so please show her some love as well. This will be released in parts, and I sincerely hope that, come next week, we've managed to satiate the anglerfish and Jackal Blackwell, or you may have a new host in this fine station. Special thanks must be given first to Mandy Mo for rendering yours truly in the beauteous image you see when you look at our page. And of course, our music is provided with permission by Cryo Chamber, Invato Elements, the Nobody YouTube channel, and the Dark Somnium with gracious thanks. We still somehow get copyright struck a lot on this channel, so if you want to support us directly, please check out the Patreon. If you enjoy these intros and want to see more, please ensure you've got notifications on and leave a comment for every video you encounter. With that, the sun has set and dusk has crawled into the studio once more. Whether you're working, prepping to sleep, or evading the formless void that will one day consume us all, Blackwell is here to soothe your ears and captivate your soul. Now, close your eyes and take a deep breath. The scene has been set and the light is on. It's time to walk towards it. The first round. Things calmed down after that. Months would trickle on, and eventually I pushed the encounter to the back of my mind, instead wanting to focus on bringing the best kinds of beverages to the unfortunate souls who stepped foot through our doors. Sure, some of them already knew the choices they were going to make and simply needed a stiff drink to nudge them further in that direction. But others, well, they just wanted to poison themselves slowly. If you've ever been to a dive bar, you know the type. Instead of shunning them, I wanted to help them. In the main ways I knew how, and through the appeal of the bar itself. I guess for me, I knew sharing some of the stories I've picked up along the way would be of interest to you. And who knows, maybe you'll stop by yourselves one day. But you don't pay in cash here. You pay with stories. If you've ever worked in a bar before, you know the happy-go-lucky environment you see on a show like Cheers, or on a weekend filled with excitable youths, is nothing like the dreary reality of a bar. Midweek Tuesday will forever serve as my motivator to abstain from booze, and it's one of these Midweek Tuesdays that I want to begin our story. First patron is a bona fide regular, Catherine Letty. She spends every waking moment with her lips around a bottle of Peruvian beer called Mama Killa's Pulse Thumper. The contents designed to bring your mood and excitement up to such a level that you felt the world around you was virtually throbbing. For someone like Letty, though, it simply evened her out. I liked Letty. She was a woman who could not stop talking about her life, but always seemed to have something interesting tucked up her sleeve, or a way about her that turned a mundane story into one of intrigue. She once spent 15 minutes telling me about the watering of her plants and the way her system worked before taking a left turn into how her giant pitcher plant was fed some of her experimental alcohol, and it ate her cat.
I got home one day and Methuselah was just gone.
She said between swigs, her youthful face riddled with stress lines, bags under her eyes, and a mess of unkempt brown hair. The majority tied back with a clip, but the fringe leaving streaks down her face to complement the streaks of booze running down her chin when she downed too much in one go. With a name like that, maybe it was a godsend, I thought, wiping down the counter while looking at her and offering a vocal affirmation of my condolences. She downed the rest of the booze and slammed the bottle down, swaying as she looked up at me.
Do you know why I came here, Sully?
She asks, her eyes half open and a jovial grin forming across her face as the effects kicked in. Same as everyone else who frequents a bar like mine, I suppose. You want to go somewhere away from prying eyes and drink without being judged. I shrug, letting the rag fall across my shoulders. I dried my hands. Maybe the booze too. I can't say we're not unique in that regard.
No. I came here because I had nowhere else to go where I could wallow.
She declares, enunciating the words nowhere and wallow for dramatic effect as she spun in a circle. She pushes some coins my way and I grab another pulse thumper for her, but she shakes her head before I can pop the cap.
No, I want something else, Sully. I want the pincer,
she says, pointing a shaking digit to the shelf behind me where my top stock sat, an assortment of bottles of different shapes and sizes, adorned with labels and logos of equally unique measure. I follow the trajectory of her finger as it landed on a brown bottle with a square center, the liquid settling neatly as it extended down either side, following up and into jagged glass spikes that formed two huge pincers. If you looked at it through the beer goggles that I'm 99% certain Letty had on, the glass could pass for a stag beetle. I didn't reach for it, instead pressing both my hands onto the table and pushing her money back to her. You don't pay for top-shelf goods with money, Letty. You tell me a story, and if it's good, I'll pour you that drink. She sighed, a hiccup escaping her lips.
My money's not good enough for you.
I smile and shake my head. Nope, but your stories are. So, tell me what happened that day when you came home from work. It was raining, right? You've forgotten your raincoat.
How did you... Yeah, it was freezing out and I'd had to get some supplies. They said Hurricane Xander was coming in and I wanted to be ready.
Her eyes sobered over and her hands shook. She tried to steady them as she cast her eyes to the floor.
I thought he'd be okay for just a few minutes. It was just around the corner.
I stared at her for a few moments and twirled my mustache. Cheddar was asleep next to me, his drool beginning to coat the floor as he had a habit of falling asleep with his favorite stuffed animal in his mouth. I looked at Letty's posture, the tremble in her lips as she fooled with her sleeves, and the hesitation in her words. I began to wonder. I sighed and reached for a bottle on the top shelf. It was a delicate orange at the bottom, and the shape was akin to an egg with deep cracks down the middle, allowing for a far brighter shade of yellow to break through. The top was cracked open with the head of a baby chick popping out, blind and screaming, the open mouth serving as the distributor of the drink. A label across the middle of the egg read, Abacus & Sons Whirlwind Milkum Concoction. 1 shot, and you'll feel the day start anew. I pulled it down and grabbed a shot glass from under the bar. It was clear and the initials SR were written across it in beautiful black calligraphy. I poured it as she stared aimlessly and I pushed it towards her.
This isn't a pincer,
She began, staring at the bubbling orange liquid in front of her.
I came here for the pincer because I heard it.
What it does isn't important anymore, Letty. As your expert bartender, I have decided this is the better drink for you. Trust me. I pushed a contact number on my phone and nodded to her as she hesitantly downed the shot, an audible hiss emanating from her chest as she breathed out a yellow smoke. Your taxi will be here in a minute. Time to go home, I said, detaching myself and beginning to prep the bar for the next patron.
I don't... What does this do?
She asked, the realization beginning to take her as she put her head in her hands.
I feel faint. Why did I do this?
Go home, Letty, I say almost coldly. If you have any trouble, you can come back, okay? She struggles to get to her feet and rubs her arms as she heads for the door, a small
Thanks, I guess.
as she leaves. I assure you, I was doing her a kindness. Letty was going to make a very, very big mistake, and I didn't want to see further harm come to her. I can't explain how I knew the full story, or how I knew this beverage was going to change her life. Call it the veteran's instinct, the desire to do right. I just knew there was something about her I had to protect. As she walked out of the bar, a flash of images came to mind. A bedroom, the sounds of things being torn, and a siren in the distance. But as soon as they come, I push them aside and go back to the job at hand. A few minutes later, I heard the door swing open as a skinny hipster sauntered in, no older than 25, and his thick black locks greased back into an undercut. His Armani suit, that usually impressed so many people, did nothing to flatter me here. He stared around at the bar, scoffing a couple times as he looked at the signs and plaques on the walls before rolling his eyes at the whole place and taking a seat in front of me. This was the ever-intolerable Gomez de Stefano. And I didn't want him anywhere near Letty. This dude had problems with socializing the way incels have problems with dating.
Janice special. Yesterday,
He says, looking down disapprovingly at Cheddar and back to me.
and make sure your fucking dog stays away from my drink. He comes near my suit, and I swear I'll kick him.
Cheddar looks up at him with sleepy eyes, puffs out a sound of protest before sinking his face into his paws to sleep. And I laugh as I find the bottle. You would be on the floor in 5 seconds begging for him not to chomp off your salami slice, Gomez. I call from under the bar, finally finding the cooler. Inside were a set of aged vials, split evenly down the middle. The left a deep blue and the right an intense magenta. The label reading, Estefania Brewery Co. presents the ultimate emotional experience in Janice. All emotions, 2 sides, 1 bottle. I pull it up and motion to Gomez which side he'd like. He picks the blue and I oblige, pouring it into a tall glass with some ice. What brings you to my ever-so-fine establishment, Gomez? I ask, putting the cooler on the counter and knowing full well that I'll need more of them soon. Gomez drank profusely once he began.
I needed somewhere I could go to talk, you know? And this place is the only one I was told wouldn't judge me.
His eyes were welling up with tears and he looked morose. I dare say pathetic in the right light. But since this is what he wanted by taking that concoction, I didn't hold much sympathy for him. Alright, what do you want to talk about? Is it what you told me about last time? I asked, waiting for any spillage of tears I'd need to dutifully mop up from my beautiful mahogany counter.
The stealing thing? Nah, I don't feel too bad about that part. It's what I saw while I was stealing that fucked with me. I don't know if I'll ever sleep well again now. God, I should have done something.
He buries his head in his forearms and sobs. Cheddar snorting before getting up, stretching, and walking off to the back. Even he wasn't buying this shit. I leaned forward, my arms folded and press him for more. What did you see that night, Gomez? He composes himself and looks up, snot running down his face that he quickly wipes away.
The apartment I scouted was simple. It wasn't in a busy area. The broad who lived there wasn't a threat, and the neighbors minded their own business. I could go about my job without incident, and my client would get paid nicely. I was told to get a specific item and to do it at a specific time. Only, I saw an opportunity and decided to get it earlier on account of the weather.
The weather? What was so important about that? I narrowed my eyes as his began to widen, clearly impressed with himself.
Oh, hurricane season. There's a fresh one on the horizon, and it was even quieter than usual. You know, if you don't count the fucking sirens. So I stepped into the apartment without any problems after I knew the broad had left and began to do my thing, searching for a lockbox. But as I went into her bedroom, I heard something coming from the living room. An awful sound like a bear rummaging through trash, but wetter. I heard the sounds of wailing and crunching as I saw a shadow cast over the wall, hunched over and the jaws tearing at whatever was there. Pincer-like arms holding it in place as mandibles ripped and tore. He retched and took a moment to steady himself. I listened intently, the uncomfortable sensation of familiarity running through me. I can't get the fucking image out of my head. Even now. I got what I needed and bugged out. Handed my shit to the client and never said a word. I came here to forget. To get it out of my fucking head. He shook in his seat and reached for the other half of the bottle with the magenta mixture, downing it so quickly that splotches fell and stained his suit. You got this upset over someone's kitten being eaten? I don't buy it, I said, reaching for a bottle on the top shelf, a golden heart with vines growing around it and a rusted key in the center producing a beautiful oaken hue. The label reading, Winchester's very own hemlock-infused adjudicator. Your first step in the right direction was choosing this drink. His bravado returned save for a slight shaking in his knee, and he laughed at me as I asked. What can I say? I'm a softie. Hearing a kitten was upsetting. Besides, why wouldn't someone be freaked the fuck out from seeing a shadow eating it while it screamed, huh? I thought you types were meant to be insightful. I grabbed a shot glass and, after turning the key on the heart, a satisfying click rang out and I poured the shimmering contents for him. It's on the house, Gomez, I replied dryly as he looks uncertain. I gotta get moving soon, Chief. Can't be having too many. He pushes it back to me, apprehension now clear in his voice, not even bothering to ask for the remaining stack of Janus I'd gotten for him. Oh, you won't need to worry. The taxis aren't available yet. Sit and drink, and I'll give you a little insider info. I smile, leaning my knuckles onto the counter as I look at the pathetic creature in front of me. He sits gingerly and, after a few moments, takes the adjudicator drink and downs it heartily. No sooner than had he done so, his entire being froze. Limbs would no longer obey him, his eyes fixed forward and onto me, the body betraying his soul entirely. I'm no longer smiling as I speak aloud while clearing the bar away of mess. You are a superb thief, Gomez. It's how you can afford the suits, the nice cars, the temporary friends around you who feign interest in sex to get loans. But you are a very, very bad liar. I look deep into his face as I finish my sentence, the disgust in my expression apparent as he looks back in fear. You want to know how I know you didn't see a kitten in that apartment? How I know you saw more than you're letting on, and even why you really didn't report it? He blinks once at me. A confirmation. Well, first, we need to discuss what you just drank. It's a drink that will determine what happens to you next, essentially. One of my own special blends, designed to weed out cancerous cells like you. You've got nothing to hide. You'll feel elation beyond your wildest dreams, and you'll get into that taxi without any issues. But if you feel even a shred of guilt in you after I'm done talking, well, I walk around the bar and put my hands on his shoulders, leaning in as I speak to him. Let's come back to that later, shall we? I know you didn't see a kitten because I just served your victim a few minutes ago. And funnily enough, she said it was a kitten too, with some degree of confusion. She came here to suffer, you know. Not entirely willingly, but that was her intention. I don't know what you gave her, but it took a very special blend to help her memory recover. I don't even know if that was the right call, but it's what has to happen. She will wake up and everything she went through will be there to greet her like a fucking parasite. I lean towards him, my voice becoming low. But I did her a favor, Gomez. I gave her a chance to take a different path than the one you and your client sought out for her. Gomez began to shake, his entire body bouncing up and down as his pupils dilated and his head shook. I don't doubt you have no idea who or what your client is, what is in Letty's lockbox, or that you're very, very sorry. But people like you never learn. You'll save your own skin the moment this happens again, and unfortunately for you, I know it will happen again. The thing I can't forgive, though, myself, if I let you go out that door. Because you saw something in that room, and you still ignored any impulse to do right. You saw something that would turn anyone else's stomach, push their flight or fight instincts, and you still chose yourself. I turn my back to him and pour myself a magenta shot of Janice, downing it as I hear the sizzling of Gomez's body begin to crescendo. You deserve what you fucking get. The form that housed Gomez began to melt away, the skin and bones beginning to burn as his limbs sagged and eventually fell from the torso, continuing to burn and melt on the floor. Gomez tries to scream through the foam that coats his throat, but a soft gurgling is all that's audible as his head sinks into his torso, and that too melts into a viscous sludge that hardens as soon as it settles. Cheddar walks back in, and his head nudges my hand as I pet him. My face stuck in a permanent scowl as I look at the ultrasound photo Letty had left behind. No Methuselah, no lost pet. Just grief marred in years of alcohol abuse and someone or something tampering with her memory. But to me, it was as clear as day. You saw a crib, Gomez. You saw a fucking crib.
You know, if Jackal Blackwell isn't able to get inside in time and feast, I may have to dip into my alcoholic reserves and see if I can't imitate old Sully's methods. Oh, what, you thought that what happened at the bar wasn't real? Oh, nonsense. We're just retelling it, listener. It all happened, and it's all important. Believe me. this is just the beginning. We must go back before we can go forward. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of our other transmissions. We're adding them regularly, and we'd love to have you as part of the Dusklight family by subscribing, hitting the bell of booze, and leave a comment for stories you'd love for my many-legged runners to find. It's time to give thanks to our Patreon supporters. First, our Sturgeon faithfuls Haley Clark, Foe, PRDDL12, Sabrina Alexander, Jason Webb, and Larry W. Purple Crayon Eaters Mary Peck, Square, Gianni Di Lorena, Feeny Von Karma, and Max, who, after marching for Sturgeon, have found a new crayon god they simply call Malum. They told me of this by, you guessed it, scribbling it in purple crayon on my desk. Our janitors Alex Nunez, Amy Sean, Ethan Nelson, and Arkham Cookie, currently entering the maintenance tunnels to clear out the scourge of Dusklight, the terminally online instigator. Our nightmare detective Adrian Rodriguez, who just finished up his first case and must now investigate the shambling and shifty crustaceans of the Great Sturgeon Swamps. Our void walker Evan Diaz, currently investigating the sound from the underground. And, as you heard in our opening, 2 more of the Blackwell family members, Jackal Blackwell and Tabitha Blackwell, join our Lord of Blood and Bone, Papa Kyle Blackwell, who seems to be cultivating a rather disturbing collection of thoracic vertebrae. I asked him why he needed it, and he simply said, between large bites of something crunchy, blood for the blood god, vertebrae for the hobo queen and the brood. Well, okay. We love and fear you, Papa. We thank you humbly for your patronage and look to see you bright and early for Dusklight orientation. Purple crayons and existential dread will be provided. If you want to be a patron, we have a link in the description below. You'll get early access to all our videos, exclusive Sturgeon Stories, and Sturgeon-focused D&D, Monster of the Week content, and more. And, one last time, listeners, close your eyes and breathe with me. Remember, no matter how bad things are, how cruel people can be, and how heavy your shoulders may feel with the weight of the world bearing down on them, Dusklight will always be here to lift the load and provide you with some respite. Drink some water. Watch a video about emperor penguins. Eat something savory and sleep on the cool side of the pillow with the window open and the stars twinkling down on you. Start and end each day with kindness in your heart. You matter. You are loved, and every day is another chance. I'll see you again when the sun sets and dusk enters the station.